Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm so pleased you are here, and I hope you're having the best week. So my month in Bali is coming to an end. I'll be heading home, and it's been a fabulous month. This week was fun. We even managed to feed a lion. You don't say that every day. We also fed an elephant as well. Amazing experience. I have to say, I've never fed a lion before. It was pretty incredible. But Bali has just been wonderful. I feel rested and rejuvenated and raring to go for the year again, and definitely have that real energy around what we're doing with Thrive Alcohol Free, what's coming up. I've got some exciting programs, retreats, and other things coming up. And yeah, I can't wait to tell you all about it. And everything that we're doing, but hope you will be part of it as well. And looking forward to meeting you on one of the things that we'll be doing over the coming year. I have also been doing, if you've been following me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free, I have been providing tips for alcohol-free August. So we're currently doing a challenge, the alcohol-free August challenge, and we are on day 8 today. So anyone who's been taking part, well done. You've done a week alcohol-free, and that is amazing. You're incredible. I wonder how you're getting on. Feel free to get in touch via email, dw@thrivealcoholfree.com, or on Instagram. Feel free to comment on one of the videos that I've been doing each day, one of the lives, or to send me a DM. And then I'd love you to join the lives when I go live. It's been great to see people and see people doing well and getting on and enjoying it. And so, as a bit of a recap, if you haven't been able to join, well, today is the day. If it's been something that you've been thinking about, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, knowing that life could be better in some way without alcohol, or you're fed up of waking up with that anxiety feeling, which is a hangover and anxiety, or maybe you're looking to have a better relationship, you're maybe looking to have more money in the bank, you want to progress in your career and you feel like you're a bit stagnant, you know there's more, but you just don't seem to be reaching that more, then why not start today? It's never too late. You can start at any point during alcohol-free August. And I know it's not the best month. People, you'll think it's not the best month, but why not? I mean, if you start now, by the time dry January comes or sober October, you've already got a couple of months under your belt for sober October. And then by dry January, you'll be a pro at this. And dry January will just come and go. And you will be thriving, I promise you. Ditching drinking is the best thing, and ditching drinking for good really makes a difference. We're doing the alcohol-free August challenge, so it's 31 days of not drinking, or whenever you start, however many days you do during August. But how incredible would it feel for you to wake up every morning ready, knowing that you are fully there, life is exciting, you are ready to start, you're fully present in everything, you are doing the things that you've always wanted to do. Suddenly your eyes are open and you see so much potential, so much possibility, and you can really live the life that you want. And you can live your best life and thrive. And so, as a bit of a recap, I thought I would give you the tips for the last 7 days, but go onto Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free. It's also on TikTok at Thrive Alcohol Free. And on YouTube, you can get all the videos. So whichever you prefer, they're there waiting for you. And it's just guidance. They're less than 10-minute videos, 10 minutes or less, to really help you and encourage you each day and have something to do each day so that you can thrive and you can enjoy the journey and not feel like you're missing out. So day one was all about your why. The tip was know your why. It's really important to have that purpose, to have that reason for doing something. That really helps. So day one was know your why. Day two was to track your progress. And I suggested downloading an app to track how much time you were saving, how much money you were saving, how many days you'd gone alcohol free. So track your progress was day two. Day three was to pause. So really, anytime you want to reach for that drink, because it's become a habit. If you've been drinking for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years plus, alcohol and reaching for that drink on that certain day or at that certain time has become a habit. So it's putting in the pause and thinking, what is the feeling that I'm trying to create? What is the feeling I'm trying to escape from? And then doing something instead that's healthier rather than drinking. And by the time you've done that thing, in theory and hopefully in practice, you won't want to have the drink. Then we moved on to day four, which was the tip about food and just making sure that you're eating 3 meals a day with protein. You're having those healthy fats, those seeds, those avocados, those nuts, those oily fish, just to help you as your body recalibrates. And then day five was one of my favorite topics, alcohol-free drinks, and being able to have an adult drink, not feel like you're missing out, explore. It's lots of fun to try all these different alcohol-free options that are available now. And it's so different to when I stopped nearly 4 years ago. There's so many more options. And then, of course, there are mocktails where you can experiment. You can invite people around for a mocktail party, and you can get hold of my top 10 mocktail recipes, which I have. I'll put the link below. So you can get hold of that and then maybe just experiment. So that was day five. Day six was all about self-care and putting on your oxygen mask before you help others, and just knowing that self-care doesn't need to be expensive and it's anything that brings you joy. Day seven, we talked about water and the fact that our body is 60% water. And we need to really be drinking water as well as part of recalibrating our body. Let's get into the habit of drinking water. And I suggested that we have a drink of water by our bedside. So you have that first thing before you have your coffee, and you've already done a decent amount of water before you've even started the day. And the other thing I mentioned was the experiment that Masaru Emoto did, who did this amazing experiment where he played different sounds and talks and the way they talk to water, and then looked at how the water's shape and the way it crystallized. And actually, when you had negative talk, you had really ugly shaped water, whereas when you spoke to it beautifully, full of love, full of joy, full of hope, you had these beautiful crystals that were created. And you can look that up if you just put in Emoto, EMOTO water experiment. You can see those shapes. And so the other thing I mentioned was how we talk to ourselves. So just making sure that we're speaking positive thoughts to ourselves. Because if our body is made up of 60% of water, then we need to be making sure that we're talking to ourselves in the right way to avoid dis-ease, to avoid any sort of illnesses. And one of the great things when we stop drinking is all those things, any negative things that have happened to our lungs or what we've done to our gut, it can all repair itself. But also the way we talk to ourselves is really important. And we have that inner critic, we have that voice that's saying, oh, well, you can't do this, you can't stop drinking, you've always had a drink, you need a drink to survive. Let's start talking kindly to ourselves. And then today's tip, you can go and get on at Thrive Alcohol Free, listen to my live, and you will find out today's tip. I hope that recap is helpful for you and you don't feel like you've missed out and you can start today. I really am on a mission to help as many people as possible realize that by ditching drinking, which is the best kept secret, you're actually able to then create the life of your dreams and you can absolutely reach your full potential and live your best life alcohol free. So that is Alcohol Free August. I hope you join me and let me know if you've got any questions. I'm more than happy to answer those on the live or send you a message or jump on a Zoom call with you. So feel free to book a Thrive Alcohol Free discovery call. I do those and there is always space in my calendar. I'll put that in the show notes below for you to book on that if that's something you wish to do. Okay, so today's guest is Heather Lowe, and let me read her bio before we go into the conversation, which was, again, just a great conversation. So Heather Lowe is the founder of Ditched the Drink, a wellness company dedicated to helping professionals drink less before it gets worse. Heather is an International Association of Professional Recovery Coach, a certified professional life and recovery coach, which was awarded the best overall program by Life Coach magazine in 2023. Heather is also a SheRecovers Designated Coach, a certified addiction awareness facilitator, and an advisor for the International Centre of Addiction Recovery Education. She received the Top Sober Coach Award from the Coach Foundation in 2023. Heather provides content, knowledge, coaching, and education to individuals and organizations seeking to be more alcohol-free. Heather is passionate about coaching, connecting people and organizations with alcohol-free resources, and creating a positive, sober community. Heather shares the bright side of sobriety as a micro influencer in the social media sober space at Ditched the Drink on most platforms. Heather's writing has been published in the New York Post, Thrive Global, Monument, The Fix, Mashable, Corporate Wellness Magazine, Employee Benefits News, and Girl Boss. She offers digital courses, coaching, and membership, as well as International Coach Federation accredited coach credentialing and business support for other coaches looking to launch their practices. Heather is a sought-after speaker and has presented for many corporate, private, and civic events. She regularly trains leaders, employees, and human resource professionals on recovery-ready and sober positive workplaces. Heather lives in Chicago's western suburbs as a proud girl mum to two teenage daughters, her husband of almost 25 years, and their adorable black and white Cocker Spaniel. Heather is a voracious reader, a newish hiker, and a seasoned yogi. So that is Heather. I think a really great bio. And yeah, we have the really fun conversation. So without further ado, here is the conversation with Heather. Okay, so welcome, Heather. Thank you so much for being on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. How are you today?
Thank you, Dubai. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, you're most welcome. It's lovely that you're here. So, for those people that might not know you, why don't you introduce yourself and what brings you to be on this podcast?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. So I'm Heather Lowe. I'm the founder of Ditch the Drink, which is a wellness company that helps high achieving women evaluate their relationship with alcohol. I say I help people before it gets worse. Being not that bad kept me drinking for far too long. And so I know you'll resonate with this. Like, we're not really thriving when we're just surviving. And I was surviving with alcohol for a long time until I wasn't. So everyone that meets with me drinks less or not at all. And I think that's awesome. We all get an opportunity to evaluate our relationship with alcohol, to learn more about what alcohol is doing to us in our life and our bodies. And so then we can start to make decisions. So for me, I started it because I ditched the drink myself in February of 2018. And this was after 3 years of doing these alcohol-free experiments, this
Mm,
on-off drinking. And at that time, if somebody told me that I had to be sober for the rest of my life, I would have slammed the door in their face and kept drinking, right? Like my goal was always to keep alcohol in my life. I tease that death by alcohol was the worst case scenario, and getting sober was the second worst case scenario. But here I am thriving, alcohol free, of course. But it took time. It took time to evaluate that for myself. So when I quit for the very last time, which at the
mm,
time I didn't know my last day one was going to be my last day one, right? It was like
mm,
every other attempt, I did a couple things different and I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, like we do. But after I was a year sober, I was in between jobs. And I have a degree in social work, but I very quickly moved to human resources and I have a professional HR certificate. And most of my career, for about 20 years, I sold HR solutions. And so drinking was also often part of my job. Like I was often the only female on all male sales teams. So drinking was part of the old boys club, right? And I could drink. I'm from Wisconsin. My parents actually met in a beer tent. My dad was a bartender. I met my husband in a bar in college. Like, of course, the meet cute story that, in a bar, I don't know another place I would meet him in Wisconsin. So drinking was normalized. It was always part of my life. It was very par for the course for all my drinking looked very, very normal until the end. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but I'm going to go back to how I started Ditch the Drink is I was between jobs and I was about to get offers for these jobs that I was qualified for because they're things that I had done in the past and I was good at them. But the journey to sobriety was a journey to myself. It was a journey to stop abandoning myself and start listening to myself and to be very aware of my own intuition and to go with that. And I just
mm,
knew I couldn't go back to those environments. Sobriety had taught me everything. So I wanted to help other women like me ditch the drink. And when I was looking for options, the only things I saw were rehab and AA. And I was terrified of both of them. I did not want either of them. And to be honest, I had a stigma about them, which I don't now. I see it very differently now. But me back then, they just didn't feel like the right fit for me. So I had created this holistic way for somebody like me who didn't have a rock bottom story, if you want to call it that. I mean, if rock bottom means having a lawyer involved or a diagnosis or an accident or a job loss or a relationship loss or something. I didn't have those things, but I was waking up miserable and hating myself every day. And to me, that's bad enough. Like it doesn't
mm.
have to get worse than that. Just waking up and hating myself and dragging myself through the day and through the motions, it really felt like an unlived life. And I was in that cycle for too long. So we call that a high bottom, but I'm like, that's still pretty bad, right? Like, does it have to get worse? What is worse than that? So anyways, I wanted to help other women like me in a different way, in a way that helped them use compassion instead of shame, in a way that helped them holistically look at their life and create coping skills. Because what happened is, although my drinking was continuing to increase, it was when I was hit with the death of three loved ones in a row. I was asked to do three eulogies in 3 years. One was for my dad, and the other two were friends that were my age. They were guys that were leaving families, and they left without warning. They were all shocking, out of order deaths that people were just ripped from me. And this is where my drinking changed. It changed from social and regular and normalized. And maybe it was increasing, but it was easier to hide. When these deaths came, it was self-medication to not feel these feelings. I wanted to perform these eulogies. I wanted to do a really good job and knock it out of the park. And I did. And when the services were over, I told myself to get over it. Just get over it. I wasn't allowed to feel. So I never let myself feel that grief. So the drinking was really stuffing. And now I know that stuffing creates suffering. And so that's where I was on this. It kind of switched. And it's because I had never learned any coping skills ever. And so I was like a toddler having a temper tantrum, right? I just didn't know what to do with myself. So I had to learn appropriate coping skills. And that's what I did through ditching the drink. Thank God now I've been led to an awakened life, and I wanted to help other women do the same. So I put everything I learned into a digital course, and that's how it started. The course is there on my website. It's called Jumpstart, and it walks you through the first 6 weeks of sobriety. It gives a video lesson every day and a list of resources and activities and homework and all that good stuff. Now, I knew to do bigger work, I needed more training. So I got certified as a coach. And the coaching world can be the Wild West. It's unregulated. So there's a lot of questions about that, I think, and what's legit, what's a real program. Having a degree in social work, I kind of thought I already knew everything. So I was a skeptic, but I chose the International Association of Professional Recovery Coaches, and I got certified as a certified professional life coach and a certified professional recovery coach. And I'm here to tell you that I did not know everything, even with my social work degree. In fact, I knew nothing. So I would have had no business being a coach without this training. This training
Mm.
taught me everything I needed to know. And I fell in love with coaching. So from there, I started accepting one-on-one clients, and it's grown. Now I have a membership. Now I partner with where I got my certification. So a lot of my clients want to become coaches. So I refer them to the program, and then they want to know how to start a business. So now I've created a course out of organic demand of coaches that are like, we know how to coach. Now what? How do we put the pieces together? And so I also have a course that teaches coaches how to launch their business. And I have a community of folks there. In addition, just to wear another hat, right? I also am certified as a facilitator of addiction awareness training, and I do a lot in the workplace. So it's been a super beautiful journey for me. And when I started, it's like, how would I combine social work and human resources and recovery? And I also love to write and I love to speak. And I found this place at Ditch the Drink that I'm uniquely suited for with my background. So I can talk to workplaces and I can talk to people. And it's my social work heart, but it's my business mind. And it's all turned out more beautiful than I can imagine.
What an amazing story. Congratulations. And it's funny, isn't it, how our intuition kicks in. I'm thinking back to that decision that you made because you were at a crossroads ultimately where you said, I could go and do what I've always known, which are these corporate jobs, and I was being offered
Mhm.
jobs, I was in between jobs, or I could take that leap of faith, which I imagine it was at the time, to start Ditch the Drink. And would you say that is purely because of your intuition and your gut, or was it more because of the deeper why, which is what you talk about in terms of helping those high achieving women?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I couldn't go back to that work. I knew I was going to do something different. I couldn't. It was a full body no for me. I
Yeah.
wouldn't fit in. I wouldn't be able to do it. I
Mm,
had done it and I had done it well, but it never sung my soul. For 20 years, I was
mm,
doing work that I knew didn't sing my soul,
mm,
but it gave me ego. It gave me a lot of
mm.
ego because I moved up in my job. I had big titles that people
Yeah.
reported to me. I had a
Yeah.
fancy office. I had high heels. It gave me an income. It gave me all these things that at the time were things that I wanted, but I was willing to risk all of that. I was
Mm,
willing to risk all of that because through sobriety, like singing my soul became more important than ego. And so
mm,
that was a shift. That was different. And then the other thing, my husband was like, well, can you make any money at this? Like, we rely on you to make a certain income. And I said, I have no idea, right? I've never done this before. So it was a huge leap of faith. And at first, I actually started paying. I paid for my certification. I paid for my technology. I mean, I was paying for things before I had any buyers. And I had 7 people on my email list that I begged to be on my email list who were never going to be purchasers, right? And 3 of those email addresses were my own. They were just my other email addresses, right? Just so I had somebody to start sending a newsletter to. And
mm,
3 of the people were me. And I would open them so I'd have a really good click rate, right? And so it was definitely a leap of faith. It took a lot, but I will also say I was in a place where I could do it versus other times in my life because I had a working spouse.
Mm.
that helped, right? I was in a place of privilege in all the ways. I had
Mm.
resources, I had benefits, I have family.
Mm.
I was in a place of privilege that I could do it. My children were older. I had older kids. When my kids were little, I could not have done this. So I had some things that were going for me anyways that not everybody has. I want to acknowledge that, right? Like it was
Mm.
a time in my life and I was in a position where I could take that leap of faith. It also took a lot of hard work. But the coolest thing is, I started, and I have a bonus room off my bedroom, which is like a room above the garage, and it's my closet. Basically, it's got all my clothes in it. And I started in there with a little desk and my computer. And I was working one day and on my little ditch the drink, which it felt like make believe to start. I mean, I felt like I was playing office, right?
Mm.
Like
Mm.
no clients, no followers, no anything like that.
Mm.
And so I was there and I remembered when I was in third grade, I was like a latchkey kid. I had a single mom. So I would walk home from school and wait and entertain myself safely until she came home. So I often went into my closet. It felt like a safe place and I had a big closet. And I started something, my own business in my mind. My mom was at work. Well, I was going to be at work too. So I started a business called Dare to Dream. And this business was a journal where I was going to help people live their best lives by journaling about Dare to Dream. But the only client I had was my cat, Big Paw. So now I tease that like I was in the business of helping cats live their best 9 lives by journaling, right? But on this day in my office, I was like, ditch the drink, DTD, Dare to Dream. Like literally, this is my third grade self having my own business from my closet. This was all meant to be. This is
Mm.
this is exactly what I'm supposed to do. So that intuition and that calling felt so strong, Dupe, that I
Mm.
couldn't ignore it. I couldn't not do it. I
Mm.
absolutely knew it was right. I did not know if it was going to work out. I did not know if I was going to make money. For sure, my ego was smashed because I wasn't going to go for those jobs where I had been moving up the ladder or anything, right? But I couldn't not listen to that calling because sobriety taught me to listen.
Mm. Yeah, so much of that resonated. We've got such a similar story, and it's amazing. I love what you said, though. I didn't have the 7-year-old thing. That's amazing. I love that what you said about being in your closet. You're probably older than 7, but being in your closet and daring to dream. And isn't it funny that as adults we sort of lose that when we start drinking? We lose those dreams, and I
Mhm.
wonder when you were sat in your closet in 2018 and you came up with this idea, how did you feel about that younger self? Because I think so many of us have those what if and why did I waste so much time? The number of people who I've worked with, and myself included, who've been on this journey, you sort of look back and think, gosh, I could have been doing so much if I hadn't
Mhm.
have been drinking. How much time and space do you suddenly have? And those dreams, when I talk about passions and hobbies and discovering that, I always say go back to childhood and think about what you love to do. But it's funny, isn't it, how those dreams seem to disappear and how alcohol just you forget and you numb. And you talked about emotions earlier, and it is all about not only numbing those negative emotions, but numbing the positive emotions and not really knowing what to do with those emotions because you haven't got the coping strategies. There's so much interwoven, and we think it is just a drink, and it's so much more than that.
Mhm. Mhm. Exactly. And for me, it was confidence. I think that's the biggest change because
Mm.
I was very confused as a drinker, right? Going through the motions, trying so hard. I was also very defensive and
Mm.
protective, and having a drink was my first sip was the best I felt all day. So don't take
Mm.
that away from me, right?
Mm.
And I was a working mom. I mean, I was part-time home with my kids, part-time working, career dreams like motivation and ambition,
Mm.
but also wanting to be a mom and really valuing motherhood and homemaking. Even I value, I think, more than most people in the world. It's beautiful work, it's unpaid work, but it's creating a home, I think, is so important.
Mm.
And my husband was traveling a lot, and we made this decision together. And he was traveling, and he was getting awarded for his drinking, and he was having seafood towers at dinner and all these things. And I was doing dinner time, bath time, bedtime, and trying to keep up my little part-time job and trying to grow. And it was looking back, I can see how challenging that was. Looking back, I can say I was jealous, I was
Mm.
lonely, I was bored, busy bored, right?
Mm.
I was overwhelmed. And my social life came to a crashing halt when we had kids, and I'm an extrovert, and his kept going. He got awarded for all these things, and I was just trying to survive. So I was drinking alone and trying to not drink too much, of course, until the kids went to bed. And then, of
Mm.
course, being afraid of drinking too much, being the one responsible at home with them,
Mm.
but also wanting something for myself. I thought it was me time, thought it was taking
Mm.
the edge off. I believed all those lies that are sold to us. I drank those like Kool-Aid, right? And
Mm.
so, yeah, I say it was an unlived life because I knew there was more for me, but I was confused and I didn't have the confidence or the time and space or the relationship with myself to go about it. I remember a friend of mine once said, Heather, you should be a motivational speaker.
Mm.
I think that's what you should do. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, in order to be a motivational speaker, you have to have overcome something. I haven't overcome anything. I'm here drinking every weekend away, right? But guess what? Haha. Now I've overcome something and I've got something to talk about. So I do speak about it, and hopefully that does help to motivate others. But it was really an unlived life. It was an unlived life for a long time, but sobriety awakened all the portals within me, the creative portals. It hasn't stopped, Dubay. I told you I'm starting a podcast
Mm.
also, and every day I'm doing something new, and every day I've got new ways to support women like me and new audiences to speak to and new ideas for my community and all these things. It's like playing. And we think we needed alcohol for fun, but when we were children, we didn't. And guess what? When you're an adult, you don't either. I'm having more fun, alcohol free, playing office here, right? With my little desk and my little computer. And now the store is open. But the exciting thing is the phone's ringing, right? Like when I first started, it was okay,
Yeah.
day one, is anybody going to come? Well, slowly, one by one, they started to come. So
Mm.
it's been a really beautiful journey.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I'm so excited for you, and just what you're doing is incredible, and to have so many different ways of helping people at different stages as well is fabulous. I love the two phrases you used about singing your soul and unlived life, and the contrast of those two things is so obvious. And
Mhm.
I wonder, without ditching drinking, would you have got to that singing of the soul
Mm-mm.
or not? Mm.
Mm. So it took me a very long time. So, for instance, the word recovery,
Mm.
it took me a very long time to accept that word for myself
Mm.
because I thought recovery meant going back to who I was before drinking, let's say, like recovering something. Like you
Mm.
would recover something on your computer, or you would
Mm.
recover something on a disk if you're 100 years old like me, or whatever that looks like. I had my first drink when I was 12 years old. I know that sounds alarmingly young, but
Mm.
also think about Wisconsin in the 80s. Okay. Like it was very par for the course. So
Mm.
I wasn't going back to anything. Like I had become somebody new. My one-on-one program is called Becoming
Mm.
because I really became somebody new when I shed that skin of drinking. I started to grow new neural pathways as we
Yeah.
do, but also I transformed from the inside out. And you'll see the outside on my before and after pictures on my Instagram, for
Mm.
instance. There's a whole before and after reel. That's
Mm.
exciting. So you can see it, but my insides match my
Mm.
outsides now. And I would be going through the motions like anybody else. I think most of us go through the motions until we're hit with something that forces us to our edge. And for some, it might be an illness, it might be a death, it might be a tragedy
Mm.
of sorts. But
Mm.
to decide to live our life in a different way and to take ownership of our life.
Mm.
And so it was an awakening for me. And now I say recovery is healing. Recovery, if I say recovery is healing, then I can accept that word. Then I can say I'm a person in recovery and I'm living in recovery. And it's something I look forward to. Like I want to be living a life of recovery versus like my hand was slapped and I'm sitting in the corner and I can't drink anymore.
Mm,
That's what I thought recovery was because those were the examples that I had in my
mm,
life was
mm,
like, shame on them. They were bad drinkers. They can't drink. Now they have to go to their meetings. Now they're sad, right? Well, it's not like I want to be a different role model for my children and for the whole world of like, it's really beautiful to not rely on a drink. It's really
mm,
beautiful to outgrow alcohol
mm.
and to be a person in healing. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. And to be honest, aren't we all healing from something? We all are healing from something. We're
Yeah.
all in recovery. And some of those
Mm,
things weren't our fault. Some of those things we're healing from were never our fault. And there
mm,
is nothing wrong with us embracing a life of healing for ourselves and others.
mm.
So let's start to shine a positive light on that.
Yeah, it's so true. I was at an event earlier today and we were speaking about big T traumas and little T traumas and the fact that so many of us walk around with so many little T traumas that we don't acknowledge, that we
Yeah.
don't think are actually impacting as much as they could be, you know. So we were talking about Gabor Mate and all his
Mm,
amazing work. And I absolutely agree. And I'm so sorry to hear about, you know, the three deaths that you mentioned. But grief is a powerful thing, isn't it? It is something that triggers people to drink more potentially, to use it as a coping mechanism. And I write about that in my book as well, how grief is just a way of numbing. My brother passed away when I was 29 suddenly from an illness, and he was 22. And so at that point, I felt like I had to be the strong, I'm the eldest child, so I had to be the strong one for my parents, my other brother. And I noticed that it was alcohol, you know, I would have a gin or I'd have a wine just to try and calm myself down to be able to cope. And it's a really tricky one. And in my book, I talk about how so many people were grieving during the pandemic in some way. They didn't necessarily lose family members, but they lost jobs, they lost homes, they potentially lost relationships. And so many people are probably still dealing. And that's why, obviously, for women, especially the number of women who now drink more, the
mm,
increase in those numbers, I think has a lot to do with that time. But for anyone who's maybe going through grief and actually alcohol's the obvious thing to go to, what advice could you maybe give that
mm.
person?
Well, first of all, I think this is a bold thing to say, but I think addiction is a human condition. I don't think there's some of us that have it and some of us that don't, let's
No,
say.
there
I
isn't.
think it's a very human condition. And for me, it was alcohol. For you, it was alcohol. For others, I mean, it could be attention, it can be achievement, it can be food, it could be any number of things. It could be love and shopping and scrolling and the whole bit. And I certainly have a bit of those things too.
Mm,
Wanting to escape pain is human condition, and doing that by distracting yourself with something else is very,
mm,
very human. So that's what addiction is
mm,
escape from pain. And that is
mm,
human to want to do that. So there is no shame, only compassion and love and understanding. I think the thing that I didn't know then that I do know now is the only way out is through.
mm,
So you have to feel it. You go to the depths of the pain. You get to feel it. And you know what? Like I wanted to be stoic afterward. Like I wanted to perform and then I wanted to move on.
mm,
And I've had plenty of deaths since, also tragic, sad stories of loss.
mm,
And I've dealt with it differently. And so I let myself, and I'm a big, huge feeler, and I let myself feel it every single time it comes up.
mm,
I do not push it away. I
mm,
find a space and a place to allow myself those feelings. And the minute you admit it, when you call it, when you say, I'm angry, I'm sad, you know, already the power is dismissed a little bit just by calling
mm,
it out. And then I let myself feel it. I stomp and hike in the woods. I listen to music and sob in the car alone, right? I get a massage, I move it through my body, I go to yoga, I
mm,
cry, I cry, I cry, I call a friend and connect over it.
mm,
I write, I journal, I let myself say what I have to say and I hear what I have to say. I do all these things I didn't know how to do before.
Mm,
But you tend to it, and it's not a one and done. You tend to it. And every time you think about your brother, you tend to it again, and you tend to it
mm,
again, and you tend to it again.
mm,
And you will not be the same person after that loss as you were before. So I
exactly.
think there's some acceptance of you will carry it with you,
Mm,
and you're meant to. If you love
mm,
somebody, there's nothing wrong with carrying that with you. And
mm,
you have periods of release and let go, and you create traditions where you can light a candle or visit a
mm,
gravesite or
mm.
breathe the air, see a butterfly or a hawk, if you're me, like
Yeah.
whatever it is that you do,
Mm,
but you were going to be transformed. You're going to be different, and accepting that instead of thinking you're going to go back to who you were before, right?
yeah.
Is okay, and to tend to it every time it comes up. There is
Mm.
not too much grief tending that we can do.
No, so true. And I think that that's absolutely it. It's the actual processing of emotions that people shy away from, isn't it? And naming the emotion, as you said, is a really good thing for people to do, but also sitting with it and acknowledging it and letting it, like a wave, wash over you, come back and forth until you're ready to move on. But they also say,
Passes. Like the clouds, like the weather, like we
yes,
are the sky and those emotions are the weather, and it will pass.
exactly,
If you sit with it,
exactly.
it will
Yeah.
pass. It will
Mm,
alchemize. It will transform into something new,
yeah.
and it will come back. Like
Yeah.
everything is a little impermanent, but the way
Yeah.
you feel in that moment is not going to last forever. And
No,
if you do sit
exactly.
with it, that's just
Yeah.
so beautiful. That's what we weren't able to do as drinkers, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you won't die from feeling,
No.
right?
And that's the thing. I think a lot of people feel that they will, and they
Yeah,
don't want to sit with it. They distract themselves, they make themselves busy. But ultimately, when you reach for that drink, you're not actually reaching for the drink. You're reaching for a feeling that you're either trying to create or a feeling you're
yeah.
trying to escape from. That's fundamentally what it is. And so if you can take that pause and think, well, what is that feeling I'm trying to create, or what am I trying to escape from?
Hmm.
And what can I do instead that might be a bit better
Hmm.
than automatically reaching for that drink?
Totally. And it's
Do
just the
something
question of what
different.
am I feeling and what do I
Yeah,
need? And the what
exactly.
do I need is never a drink. It might
No,
be I need escape. I need to
yeah.
tend to this emotion.
Mm,
I
mm,
need movement. I need an energy
mm.
shift. I need to
Exactly.
address something. I need to
Yeah,
communicate. I need to express
yeah,
myself. Right.
yeah.
A lot of mine was like anger, resentment, to be honest, of like,
Mm,
no boundaries, maybe, right? Or
mm,
people pleasing
yeah,
behaviors or stop being so hard on myself is probably what I
yeah,
needed, right? I was just whipping
yeah,
myself into achievement and perfectionism. And what I needed
yeah.
was to give myself a break. But if you can
Mm,
ask those questions, everything you need, what do you need? It's inside of you. It's not
absolutely.
outside in that bottle of wine. It's
No.
inside of you, and you can tend to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, really, really good advice. And you talked about also going into the workplace, which is really fascinating. I know a couple of people that do that and that go into workplaces, but I'd love to hear what you do and how you work with organizations. Because as I mentioned to you, I think the corporate world has changed over the years. Well-being is something that is being talked a lot more about, mental health, etc. And I was saying to you, I was in the corporate world and I remember having lots of talks, people coming in and talking about various things relating to well-being, resilience, wellness, mental health, but no one ever spoke about alcohol, which always amused me a bit, especially once I stopped drinking, because they just didn't correlate that that's actually a huge well-being aspect, and it was about exercise and everything else. So tell us what you do and how you work with organizations.
Yeah, so you're so right. We don't want to talk about alcohol. We shy away from alcohol. Nobody wants to make alcohol the bad guy.
Yeah,
We think
exactly.
it's our friend and we do not want anyone to make it the bad guy. I understand, of course, because I was the same. I
Mm,
worked in places that had beer kegs in the office. I had all you can drink sales vacations. Like, I ran the gamut. I'm sure so
mm,
did you. I again partner with the organization where I got my certification from to become a certified facilitator of addiction awareness in HR. So I actually
mm,
teach the HR piece for folks that want to create a plan for a recovery-friendly workplace. And in the United States, there's actually a new federal initiative called Recovery-Friendly Workplaces, where you can get credits in certain areas by doing certain things in benefits, like having your mental health benefits match your physical health benefits.
Mm.
There's things like having a leader talk about it. There's things like advertising a mocktail at
Mm.
corporate events, which I freaking love to
Mm.
hear. There's just a whole list of things in HR, within benefits, within recruitment and retention, within employee culture and other things. And if you get enough credits, you can get this federal emblem of distinction. So there's actually like a federal initiative. It's hot off the press. It's absolutely brand new. It's just
Mm.
started in the last few weeks. There's a toolkit, and one of those things is education. So I have a presentation that I can give to any organization. It's a train the trainer sort of presentation. So
Mm.
also, if you or anybody wants to get trained on that, they
Mm.
can take that and then train their
Mm.
organizations. And
Mm.
there's an HR component that's optional. You can do the presentation with or without the HR piece. But if you want the HR piece, I would be your instructor for that.
Mm.
So this
Mm.
is really cool. And I just came back from a conference actually in Denver, Colorado called Faces and Voices of Recovery. And this recovery friendly workplace stuff was all over the place. So it's happening. It's really, really happening where we're starting to address alcohol in the workplace. And it's everything I've been wanting for years and years, but it feels like it's coming true. So we are able to address it. Now, the thing is, the return on investment for being a recovery friendly workplace is huge because, as you and I know, like hiring people in recovery, probably the best workers you're ever going to get. They've already overcome something. They're going to show up. They're going to be productive, right? We're definitely bringing our best selves to work. So it helps the company to do that. And in addition, when alcohol is added in the workplace, liability goes up, sexual harassment goes up, accidents go up, absenteeism goes up, productivity goes down.
Mm.
It's very expensive to
Mm.
have alcohol in the workplace, and the consequences and the outcomes of that are all very negative. But
Mm.
again, that's not something that a lot of people have wanted to look at. It's like we want to just kind of shove it under the rug because we want to keep drinking because our
Mm.
jobs are so stressful and it feels like an easy way to reward. It feels like an easy corporate gift. It feels like an easy way to event plan is to
Mm.
just add alcohol, but the reality is, and the studies are that it doesn't help at all. So I love opening that up to
Mm.
conversation. And for me personally, coming out sober on like LinkedIn was the biggest thing for me. It was one thing to do on Facebook or my personal
Mm.
circle. That was
Mm.
hard. But when I came out in a professional way, that
Mm.
felt even bigger and even more so. So for me in my own recovery, let's say, to be talking loud and proud and trying to make a change in the workplaces and the places where I had been feels like a natural extension of my own healing.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. And I think it comes back to what you said earlier about the stigma of it all as well. And so, who is this aimed at? Is it aimed at people who have gone through recovery and are now in the workplace, or is it aimed at everyone? Because my view is that we should be educated. So I take the stand that you don't have to hit a rock bottom, similar to you. I don't work with people that need medical intervention that have hit rock bottom. It's a choice that you make. And I work with grey area drinkers, which is a huge spectrum because it's basically anyone who isn't teetotal or hasn't hit rock bottom.
Right.
And so when you look at that, that is probably the majority of the workplace.
Yeah.
And so when you go in using the word recovery, I wonder, does that put some people off, or is that intentional because it's a group that you're trying to work with?
Yeah, great questions because language totally matters, right?
Mm.
So, yeah, it can be very off-putting, I think. So the presentation that you learn, you get all the sources, all the information, the actual presentation, you get trained in how to present and how to facilitate. And so it's powerful, it's beautiful, but
Mm.
you would customize it for whatever group you're giving it to. So you can remove slides, add slides, and then different industries are affected differently, like
Mm.
construction and addiction and painkillers, let's say, like
Mm.
prescription meds, that looks different
Mm.
than maybe a group of lawyers. who are
Mm.
drinking wine and networking, or sales folks that are
Yeah.
over drinking at dinner. So you can customize it for whoever you want and bring your own touch to it. But I say, let's just say recovery. Like, I've gotten more comfortable with it. It's something to be really proud of. So I'm going to be loud and proud about that. And I'm going
Mm.
to change the stigma when it comes to that. And
Mm.
also, addiction is affecting, and again, these are stats for the United States because that's where I'm
Mm.
at, but 2/3 of American households are affected by addiction.
Wow.
So that's everybody. That's you or
Mm.
somebody you know.
Mm. Mm.
Everybody knows somebody who's struggling with addiction or in recovery.
Mm.
That's the alarming truth of it. So I don't
Mm.
think we need to hide away from that. I think let's talk about it. I think
Mm.
literally hashtag let's talk about it. Let's say alcohol use disorder. Let's say substance use disorder. Let's say
Mm.
recovery. Let's stop pretending like it's not happening, because it
Mm.
is. But the exciting thing is, more people that are dying and are addicted, there's even more people that are in recovery. Recovery is so possible. And in fact, at that conference, there was a group that was wearing a shirt that said, expect recovery. And
Mm.
I loved that. Give
Mm.
people the tools, the resources, the compassion, the understanding, the sources. They will recover. We do
Mm.
recover. You and I are proof of it right here.
Mm.
And everybody listening probably, and everybody following
Yeah.
us. So let's bring it
Yeah.
out into the light and let's talk about it.
Yeah. And I think that's right. Expect recovery. That's really interesting. And that could be read in so many different ways, because I think fundamentally for me, the point is, regardless of who you are, what you do, where you are in society, how much you earn, whatever, alcohol is an addictive substance. So if
Yes.
you drink enough of it, or you drink it over a long period of time, you're going to become addicted to it.
Yes.
So when you said expect recovery, the way I read that was actually the majority of people, if you don't get to a point where you actually say no to this, or I give myself permission to not follow the crowd and I'm going to do something different, you will expect recovery because you will get to the point where you have to do something about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fascinating, really interesting.
And if you don't, it feels like an unlived life. To
Yes,
me, like, if
exactly.
you're alive, you know, but you're not really living.
Yeah.
I
And
wasn't at the
it's the
end.
point. Mm.
I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. I wasn't living. I was
Mm.
making lunches and sweeping the floor and going to work and propping myself up in front of a computer, but I wasn't living at all.
Mm. And yeah, and you obviously mentioned it earlier in terms of every day waking up, feeling miserable and hating yourself. And that is just such a powerful thing to say. And I wonder, when you reflect back on that, how does that feel? Did that go on for a long time, or was that a short period of time? And then how do you feel now when you wake up?
Yeah, it was far too long. I mean, it was years, decades. It was gradual. So I
Wow.
didn't recognize
Mm.
it, of course, as it was happening, but I was
Mm.
killing myself slowly.
Mm.
I really was.
Mm.
And I can't think of anything sadder. I mean,
Mm.
that was really, really sad. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, my very first sober experiment, I wanted to go 100 days, and I went 70, and I thought I was cured and I was going to go and be a normal drinker now, which is everybody's goal at first, I think, right? And I couldn't deny that when my head hit the pillow at night, I felt proud of myself. And when I woke up in the morning, simple pleasures were starting to come back. As a drinker, my first sip of wine was the only uptick I was going to get all day because I was
Mm.
so miserable. So that
Mm.
little dopamine hit was like that little sense of freedom, or
Mm.
that floaty feeling was like, yes, that's the best I'm going to feel all day. And it
Mm.
started to take away, like, watching my kids play in a pool wasn't that fun for me. Getting a hug from my husband wasn't that amazing for me. The only
Mm.
thing was alcohol. And in my 70-day experiment, the birds were singing, the clouds were moving. My kids, the sound of their laughter, I had
Mm.
never heard such a beautiful song, you know? So
Mm.
the simple joys were returning from the inside out, and I was building a relationship with myself. And
Mm.
so I'd always been worried about what everybody else thinks. And it's just, I started to return to me and I started to build a relationship with myself. And I am living now and I am comfortable with my breath. I would talk about sit with feelings. I can sit with my own discomfort. I can sit with myself and my breath. And I could never do that as a drinker. And if I can do
Mm,
that right now, I will be able to do that in my last breath. I will be at
yeah.
peace. I'm at peace within now, and I never had that before.
Mm,
So I feel alive. I feel like I'm living, and
mm,
and I feel like I was dying as a drinker.
that's beautiful. And it's funny because you could reel off all the achievements you had. I'll speak for myself. I could reel off all the achievements that I've had over the past, 3.5, 4 years of not drinking. But the thing that I love the most is what you've just described about seeing the joy in the ordinary, really, and
Hmm.
hearing the birds sing, looking up at the stars and seeing, at night seeing the stars, seeing the clouds float by, looking at the leaves changing, and just
Sunset,
that, the
just
presence. Yes,
sunset.
sunset, just
Yes.
being present, hearing
Yeah.
my daughter laugh is infectious.
Yeah.
And I love everything you say because I think a lot of people think it's all these big things that you do. And yeah,
No.
of course, they're amazing. But for me, that is the power of thriving alcohol free.
Totally. Yeah, we have those moments when we're on stage or we're getting a
Mm,
award, but
mm,
it's 90% of our life is in that ordinary.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the sobriety makes even the ordinary extraordinary.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. And I know we're coming towards the end of this fabulous conversation. I feel like you've got so much more to share. And so it feels like you might have to come back another time and share
Perfect,
some
please.
more
Yes.
wisdom. But I've just touched on, obviously, my view of thriving alcohol free. But we ask everyone who comes onto the podcast, what does thriving alcohol free mean to you? So I'd love to hear, Heather.
Definitely just being aligned, mind, body, spirit, living in
Mm,
alignment, knowing who you are
mm,
and marching to that beat of your own internal drum with clarity, with focus, with compassion and with healing.
yeah, brilliant. I love that. Well, thank you. And so, where can people find you if they want to find out more about all the amazing things you're doing?
Yes, awesome. Please go to ditchthedrink.com, my website, so many resources, free guides, free trial to my membership, a huge, huge blog that's like 5 years worth of. I loved reading people's blogs when I was in early sobriety.
Mm.
I will be starting a podcast, so get on my list for more things coming soon. I do mostly a weekly newsletter that has information and resources. And of course, you can follow me on social media. I'm Ditch the Drink on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, no TikTok. I'm not going to apologize. I'm pretty sure everybody's thrilled to hear that, but Ditch the Drink everywhere. And I would love to connect with your listeners as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And I'll put that in the show notes. And so, any last piece of wisdom you'd like to share with the listener?
No, I love it. Go on, thrive, alcohol free.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it and look forward to the next episode where we have you back and look forward to hearing your own podcast as well. Very, really exciting.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Well, thank you, Heather. What a great conversation. I hope you enjoyed that. And I was reflecting on it and thinking about the Alcohol Free August Challenge. It may seem like you're only taking a 31-day break from alcohol, but I promise you, if you do that 31-day break, you've one, broken the habit of drinking, but you've also started on a journey. And the likelihood is you'll be feeling better and you might not be seeing all the results that you want to see. You might not have lost any weight, or you might not have seen a massive increase in your bank account or anything like that. But actually, if you continue, and I always talk about doing 90 days to 100 days alcohol free, because that's when you really see magic happen and opportunities coming your way. But for me, one of the things Heather touched on was the unlived life. And I do believe that a lot of us are holding ourselves back from doing what we know will sing our soul, will really make us like we are living the life we've always wanted to live. There's The Regrets of the Dying, the book, which a hospice nurse wrote about all the different regrets. And there are all these regrets that people have. And I think one of the things that we all do is we think we're living, we think we're doing the right thing, we think we're following what everyone else is doing, so that must be right. But we don't actually stop and think about what we really want. We're not brave enough to take steps into the unknown and to do something different because we haven't got the confidence. And that's because alcohol's been taking our confidence away over these years. So if you want to not live an unlived life, if you want to fully live, fully thrive, fully reach your potential and live your best life, I absolutely recommend taking a break from alcohol because it's the start of everything. That's why my company is called Thrive Alcohol Free. Ditching drinking for good is just one step. That's the first part. That's the step into the thriving. And so much comes from it. And so with all my programs, that's why we go through the foundations, the first, and then the freedom. And the freedom part, which is really how to thrive, is the part that will just let you really fly, really just be who you're meant to be in this world and be confident enough to know how powerful you are, how amazing you are, and that you can go after anything that you want to do. And so I really hope that if you are thinking about it, if you've been thinking about it for ages, if you've been thinking, actually, maybe I do need to take a break from alcohol, jump onto the Alcohol Free August Challenge. Start today if you haven't started yet. If you want some extra encouragement, reach out to me, send me a message, send me an email, get in touch, and I will help you. I'm rooting for you. I really want you to succeed in this. I want you to not live an unlived life. I want you to live the best possible life that you can. And so, on that note, I hope you have the most amazing week. If you're doing the Alcohol Free August Challenge, get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear how you're getting on and if you're finding the tips helpful. And if there's any questions you have, I'm more than happy to answer them. And as I said, you can also jump on a discovery call with me. So, all the details are in the show notes, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.